The weather this winter has been brutally cold and windy, so why not stay indoors with some hearty chili? The 5th annual Chili Cook-Off is happening at Sonny's Pizza on February 23rd. Attendees will get to sample over 10 varieties of chili, all from local Georgia Avenue small businesses. RSVP for free or grab a VIP pass, which includes early entry, guaranteed chili tastings, and other perks. Again, that's the 5th annual Chili Cook-Off at Sonny's Pizza. That's in Columbia Heights on Georgia Avenue between Irving and Kenyon, and it's on February 23rd. Today on CityCast DC, we are talking about Donald Trump's conservative activist U.S. attorney nominee for DC. We're talking about the closure of downtown's Indie Movie House, and we are going to talk about the future of scooters. I'm here with Axios' Cuneyt Dil and CityCast's Julia Caron. Today is Friday, February 21st. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Cuneyt.
Hey, Michael. It's nice to join you.
Thanks for being here. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
So, Cuneyt, you wrote your column this week about Ed Martin. He's the presumptive U.S. attorney for D.C. Under our weird D.C. rules, the prosecutor for local yokel crimes as well as big federal crimes is the same person. It's the U.S. attorney. It's nominated by the president. Who is this dude?
Yeah, Ed Martin is the guy Trump has picked for the U.S. attorney for D.C. He's a MAGA true believer in many ways. He is someone who is very loyal to Trump and was loyal to him and MAGA movement back in 2016 before President Trump won his first term. And he kind of comes from a very conservative, far-right almost sort of part of the GOP, the kind of wing of the party that even moderates I speak to are sort of like, we don't really know him or much about him, even as he's now in D.C. And he has run for Congress before in Missouri, and he hasn't unsuccessfully. And he lives in Great Falls, Virginia now since 2018. And now he is one of the most important prosecutors in the country.
Yeah, so he was also a big opponent of January 6th prosecutions and a proponent of the Stop the Steal movement.
And he was there on January 6th.
Was he really?
As far as I've seen reported, not in the Capitol, not in the riot, but he was there. You know, there was a big, the day started as the Stop the Steal rally of all these people. And he was there, and he kind of downplayed what happened that day and called it sort of fake news.
So what do we, what does this mean in real life? There are laws, and laws get prosecuted, but tell me where the sort of discretion and identity of the prosecutor may make a difference or not.
It's kind of twofold, because this office prosecutes things of, things like national security issues, terrorism cases, white-collar crime in D.C. And it also prosecutes all of our street-level crime practically. And when it comes to the latter half of it, if you look at locally what he's going to do, he's promised going after criminals harder, prosecuting more violent criminals, getting some of the murder case backlog cleared in D.C. And he's talked about wanting to fill more vacant judges in the judicial system so these cases can move quicker. These are all things locals can kind of, argue on principle, whether how harsh sentencing can be and that sort of thing. But it's local in nature, and this is something the mayor, who is kind of more of a moderate, is frankly okay with. She does want more prosecutors focused on D.C. crime. She does want more judges to be confirmed by Congress. And so far, that's the local component of what he said. And he hasn't given interviews, but he has talked to Mayor Bowser and the police chief, Pamela Smith, and they both discussed how do we get the streets safer. And that's one portfolio that he has, right? So
I was going to say potentially part of his other portfolio, and I don't know if this is true. I know Trump announced on Air Force One that he wants a government takeover of D.C. Would Ed Martin be the person who is enforcing that, like on the street level?
Well, Ed Martin could be the person who takes a lot of maybe control or influence over the police department, perhaps, if the city police department does get taken over by the feds. I mean, we have to step back a little bit. Trump did say kind of surprisingly, actually abruptly, that he wants to take over DC. He said this on the campaign trail, but he wasn't really saying this in the past few weeks or months. And he came out this week and said the city should be taken over, even though he personally gets along with the mayor. But that kind of has to go through Congress. That's a long ways away, maybe. But he could take over the police department much more easily.
For a short period of time.
For a short period of time, I think it's 30 days, and then he needs more congressional approval. But presumably, you could see that maybe passing more easily than a full-scale takeover. And Ed Martin, as the prosecutor, well, I think he's in the ear of the president's advisors, and he could be someone who takes a more influential role with the day-to-day of the city.
I mean, it seems to me, reading between the lines of Trump's comments, he's obsessed with graffiti and with his belief that D.C. is like graffiti strewn. I don't, particularly the monumental parts of D.C., I don't perceive it that way.
Yeah, I was going to say,
right.
Where's this graffiti?
But, like maybe every single underpass between, between the White House and like if he has to drive to Andrews or something ought to be clean. But so how much does a prosecutor's discretion factor into things like that? I mean, could they throw the book at someone caught graffitiing?
I mean, these are all things already in their control, I guess. The prosecutors he's not proposing new laws. He's not proposing new ordinance against graffiti. But Trump does like to obviously make a show that he's doing something. And, we heard about this executive order that the Trump administration is planning about DC crime. And it's just another way that he can talk about graffiti and things that he's perceived is wrong with the city and put a signature on it and sign it and then tell Ed Martin you have to go tougher on these criminals.
The other DC piece is about civil liberties and particularly protest dissent. Martin has made these noises about we're going to investigate anyone who threatens Doge people, and this week requested information from a member of Congress who had used this, had said like, we're going to have to bring guns to this knife fight when talking about Doge, and investigated that like a threat. This is a sort of unprecedented thing. And a lot of people think, I think accurately, it sounds like an effort to chill criticism of the Trump world. But that's another big piece of it. What are people telling you about that?
Well, the Post has done great reporting on this too. He has sent letters to Schumer and another congressman.
Robert Garcia, yeah.
Right. And again, going after something Schumer said in 2020 that he's apologized for and sort of retracted. But anyways, he's acting in a way that's highly unusual for a federal prosecutor. Prosecutors act very sort of impartially. They try and go in great lengths to stay out of the press and limelight and not name directly people that they're investigating or sending inquiries to. I mean, it's virtually unheard of to see a prosecutor confirm an investigation in this way. And, people who are former federal prosecutors are worried that some of the things he's saying are very unusual. Like he says that he wants to go after people who have done unethical acts, and people kind of wonder, well, what's an unethical act? What does a federal prosecutor have to do with investigating things that they deem are unethical?
And the irony of his having attended a rally which was punctuated with nooses is not getting in the way of this.
Yeah, right.
One thing, you mentioned how he, earlier in his career, he was a close associate of Phyllis Schlafly, who was the prominent, anti-feminist leader, campaigner against the Equal Rights Amendment. There has been this question ever since Trump's reelection of abortion rights in D.C., currently legal, but there are a lot of things that are within the discretion of a prosecutor. Has there been any indication of what he may do on that front? Because Schlafly was a big anti-abortion activist.
Yeah, and they co-wrote this book promoting Trump to conservatives before Trump won his first term. So, like I said, these are true believers in the cause. I haven't heard anything about abortion, and I haven't seen anything he said about it in D.C. Since he's taken this office, when Trump was sworn in, as far as the specific local things he's talked about crime, he's talked about getting, quote, these thugs with guns off our streets. that sort of thing. I haven't seen him talk about other sort of DC policy issues as much.
One other thing, there was this story this week of a senior prosecutor in that office who quit rather than do a thing involving freezing AID funds. What happened with this case?
Sure. Then this is, you might recall, there's been quite a few prosecutors resigning in the DOJ lately. So Trump nominates Martin for the full permanent position the day after Dennis Chang, his top deputy, who leads the criminal division in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., she's in charge of a lot of the criminal prosecutions, including murders and robberies and what have you. She abruptly quits the office, resigns, and it comes out that she was refusing a Trump administration request to order a freeze on accounts of these contractors that the Trump administration wanted a freeze on their accounts. And turns out this is involving EPA grants. And she quits and says, not much, but basically what the reporting we've seen in the Times and the Post is that she didn't want to take this decision because there was not enough sort of evidence from her point of view that these grants should be frozen.
So I imagine that Ed Martin is a name that we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the coming weeks, years, etc.
Yes, he posts on X a lot, and
any response to your story?
Not, and I would love to interview him. We've reached out, but presumably this is someone who does want to get really involved in DC and hire prosecutors to focus on local DC.
Okay, so have you ever wished that you could witness a Mario Kart race in real life? Hear me out. You're in an underground parking garage full of cyclists in ridiculous costumes, speeding around tight corners and racing toward the finish line. There's even a pop-up bar and food from DC's best local vendors. The best part? It's free to watch. Yes, this dream can be a reality. It's all happening at the Garage Racing National Championships, returning to National Landing on Saturday, February 22nd. What started as a quirky garage race in 2012 has since grown into a national competition, drawing riders and spectators from across the country. And bikers can still register or just come for the experience, because honestly, where else are you going to see something like this? The Garage Racing National Championships are going down from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday, February 22nd. It's easily accessible from the Crystal City Metro stop in Arlington's National Landing. Again, it is free for spectators, but RSVPs are encouraged at nationallanding.org/racing. And I'll see you underground.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Maybe get in better shape or eat healthier, save more money, travel somewhere new. What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm having such a good time learning Spanish on Babbel this year. I'm taking a trip to Mexico City in the spring, and Babbel is giving me the Spanish foundation that's going to make my trip so much better. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by more than 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks, or at whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. And one way they do that is with their own podcasts. I'm a podcast listener. I'm guessing since you're listening to this podcast, you are too. And I have been getting ready for my Mexico City trip by listening to Babbel's conversational podcasts. There's a short conversation you listen to, then an instructor talks you through what happened, and then you listen again, and then you catch everything when you listen that second time. There's also a great read-along transcript, too, which I love. The one I did today was with Maria and Carmela, trying to make dinner plans, but Carmela is so busy. She's way too busy with work and yoga, but finally they agreed on brunch on Saturday. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. So let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So also this week, the E Street Cinema, one of the last downtown movie houses, is closing.
No, rest in peace.
Yeah, maybe prosecutors can get involved in that because it seems unethical to me. But look, this was like a little indie movie house right in, a sort of Penn Quarter downtown. And I think that genre of facility just doesn't work so well in the country anymore. Are you guys fans of the place?
I mean, the last time I went was maybe like 10 years ago. And I imagine
guess
that
not.
this is, well, I don't know. I mean, I imagine that this is also part of the bigger pandemic trend of like people just don't really go to movie theaters anymore too, right? Like even if it's like indie or big box films.
Yeah, it's sad. I think the last movie I went there was for that great piece of journalism cinema known as Spotlight.
Yeah, there we
And-
go.
Right. So I think the three of us, because that's the last time I went there too. So I think the three of us are maybe a pretty good example of what went wrong here. But look at, I think that the other thing, which Julia, you pointed out yesterday, is, this happens right as DC has made all this talk over the last couple of years of turning downtown into an actual neighborhood, a place where people can live and work and play, but mainly live. And, when you think of a neighborhood, you think of things like movie theaters, I guess. You think of the things, you think of little cafes, not just fancy nighttime restaurants. And you especially think of grocery stores, of which they really don't have any. So, I don't know if this, I suspect given this is a media story more than like a downtown residential story, that this theater would close because it's just like it's a thing that's happening wherever the theaters are. But it does sort of call, sort of bring attention to like, well, what kind of neighborhood is this that they're making, and is anyone going to want to live there?
Yeah. The thing that I kind of noted was that like the only remaining major movie theater downtown is the Regal Gallery place, which I've definitely been to like way more recently, maybe like 3 years ago.
And which is kind of like a shopping mall.
Yes, it is like a shopping mall. It's like tacked onto Cap One Arena, but like that's kind of the last movie theater thing that's going on there. So like, I don't know. I expect that they won't build more movie theaters if there's nothing there. But do we think that like Regal Gallery Place would take over some of the indie films that E Street Cinema was doing, or not so much?
I think from DC's point of view, they would rather like Safeway or Giant take over that space.
True. I imagine it needs like fancy infrastructure for that though, because like you need like freezers and storage. You also need like alleys to like get the stuff into the grocery store.
I mean, we joke, but like the number of former DC movie houses that are currently CVS drugstores.
Oh, it's so high.
It's fairly
I
high.
live right down the street from one, yeah.
So, I don't know. This is a small, multi-screen small movie house. Like not a big room, but it seems to me like maybe that's a possibility. And again, with the grocery stores, there's this sort of chicken and egg problem where grocery stores only want to be where there's already residents, and residents only want to move where there's already grocery stores. So, I know DC would very much like to get one in there, as much as cineasts would like to get a new movie house in there.
I'm with you, Michael. I wish my MacArthur CVS, that was a cinema house, it was a grocery store too.
Can't wait for the Uptown near my apartment to become the Uptown CVS, even though there's a CVS right down the street.
Yeah.
I mean, if we just did like a 30-year cycle where they switch back and forth every 30 years, we would probably get a rough equilibrium.
This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
So, Julie, you were talking about scooters this week, which is like feels very retro subject here in this moment of like national backlash against anything newfangled in terms of transportation. But there's a new scooter that you can add to your phone. What is it?
So I own my own electric scooter. I was scootering enough that I was like, you know what? The cost benefit analysis is like, I should just buy my own. But there is a new company. They're called Hop. It's Hop with 2 Ps, very tech bro-y. And basically they have a bunch of cool new technology in them. So the first thing that they have is this anti-drunk scootering test. So like Friday or Saturday night, if you want to ride on the scooter, you scan the scooter and then it makes you go through like a punch-in test where you have to like hit different knobs on the scooter or hit different things on your phone to make sure that it's safe for you to actually scooter in the streets of downtown.
Wait, why are they doing this? Were the other scooter companies, have they had like a big loss rate as a result of drunk scooterers, or is this purely in the public interest?
I think a little column A, column B. Like I think, I don't know, man. I've seen people drunk scootering and it's scary. Like it is you and the road. And like if you get hit, you're done. So I imagine there is some public interest in there, but also like, yeah, like some other scooters maybe don't have this tech and like we have an advantage kind of thing. So there is that.
Wait, and they've got these AI, like these cameras with AI so they can tell if you're on the sidewalk.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to say this once, and I need everyone listening to adhere to this. You are a moving vehicle if you are on a scooter. Scooter in the road, please. Basically, what this AI does on this particular scooter is it analyzes everything. It has a video camera on it, and it analyzes everything that's around it. And so if you're on a sidewalk, it will slow you down or bring you to a complete stop, potentially. Like I said, don't scooter on the sidewalk, scooter in the street. One other thing to note is that apparently these cameras are sharing some of the video of the streets with the DC government so they can spot like potholes or things that like need to be built upon. I don't know that it'll actually help or if the quality of the film is all that great, but like, I don't know, more power to them, maybe, possibly. Yeah, I don't know. Junaid, are you a scooter rider?
I'm not, but I hear you, but I don't know if I feel good enough to ride on the street in some of these places. If it's gonna stop me, I might just get off this thing.
There is that.
Julia, what does this set you back?
Okay, so when you get one of these e-scooters, you pay to start the ride, basically, and then for each minute after that, there's a certain fee that's incurred. I imagine it's comparable to, like, I know, Lyft has scooters around town, Lime has scooters around town. I imagine to be price competitive, it's in whatever their range is. And you can also, like, price match in the actual app, so you can, like, check to see if there's a scooter nearby and maybe it has, like, a lower thing. It's very interesting. But yeah, it's, there's a starting price and then you scoot around town. I would say if you are someone like me who was using a scooter that frequently, you could just invest in one. The upfront cost is a lot, but afterwards, you just charge the thing and you never have to think about it again.
How much is the upfront cost?
Ooh, so the upfront cost for the scooter that I got was $500. But the truth is that if you have scootered like 50 miles, 50, in the last calendar year, that's kind of worth it because the cost basically is around that. It's per mile, per minute. But yes, I would highly recommend scootering if you have like an in-between distance, but not while imbibing. That's not good.
I'll keep a note of that, too. Thank you. And hey, you guys, thank you for being here, Junaid. Awesome to see you.
Hey, good to talk to you.
And keep us posted on Martin. If he does call you, come back and tell us what he said.
Absolutely. Call me at Martin.
And awesome to see you, Julia.
Same to you, Mike.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Francisco Kilgore. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman and Natalia Aldana wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not shout about it next time you are on a scooter? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.